this is a message for the Great Forest National Park people behind it. I don't know who you are, but I have seen your Facebook posts. People have sent me links and bits and pieces. I thought probably I'd just try and explain things from my point of view a little bit. To do that, I've invited you into my place, which, by the way, and you'll like this if you're real greenies, is completely off the grid because I believe we should use the least amount of resources possible for a whole lot of reasons. But anyway, I'm sure you feel much the same, and that's wonderful. We have something in common to start with. But this is where it starts to get a little bit separated. Now, I've spent my whole life in the bush, working in the bush. And so when I express an opinion, which is what I expressed in the petition, it's not an educated opinion. It's just an observer's opinion, someone who's been on the ground all over the place, not just in Victoria. And this is the problem for me, okay? Because I've seen from a practical perspective, I guess, and this is just an opinion. We are talking about this massive area of land, like absolutely huge, you know, and I might get it wrong as to where it is geographically, but I'll put a post in here somewhere so that everybody else can see exactly what we're talking about. But it is a huge amount of land you're talking about. Can parks cope with it? I doubt it very much. I don't think they have the resources to do that. And even if they did, prospectors, you don't keep them out. You've got to be kidding. I mean, they keep things open. Ever since the great white canoe landed here and white people took over from the indigenous people in land management, things have been going backwards. We brought all sorts of foreign flora and fauna to this country, which is going berserk as we speak. And that's why you need people in the bush to control that. So when it comes to prospectors, you know what they're doing? They go into the most wild areas. They go as far up the creeks as you can go. They do all sorts of things. Now, yes, it should be controlled. I mean, by crikey, if you're talking about someone just walking through the bush, you know, with a mine lab or somebody else doing a bit of panning or something like that, by crikey, encourage it. It keeps the bush open and it keeps the creeks open. Why do we need the creeks open? Because if there's a bushfire, we have to be able to get a truck in there and get some water or something like that. Camping does much the same thing. Four-wheel driving keeps tracks open. Four-wheel drive clubs and four-wheel drivers get out there, remove the trees, fill in the ruts, do all sorts of stuff that parks would never get around to. And sure, they have a bit of fun doing it, and then every now and then some yahoo cuts something up and does something stupid. But at the end of the day, you know, a little bit of ploughing and Mother Nature can solve that really quickly. You don't keep people out, you encourage them to act responsibly. Get them in there, keep the country open. Hunters, look, I'm not a shooter, okay? I was once a hunter, so more than a shooter. I lived off the land. But that is not something that's wrong. I hate to say this, but there's always going to be a huge group of people who love their guns, who love their bows and arrows, who love hunting. And, you know, let's not talk about mental problems if people are stifled from what they're supposed to do. Let's talk about the positives. If we take them as a resource, then guess what? Oh, Leadbetter's possum's got a much better chance of surviving if there's no dogs, if there's no pigs, or a lot less dogs and pigs, if he's not having to fight the deer for, you know, the food that's available, etc. And it's the same for all our native animals. They do not do well in a world that's populated with feral animals, okay? Cats, please let someone go in there and shoot the cats. Crazy not to, absolutely crazy not to. They eat everything. Have a look at the Simpson Desert if you really want to see some damage caused by cats and by bad parks management. And when I say this, I'm not talking about the great majority of rangers whose hearts are really in their jobs. I'm talking about this mentality that says, people are bad. I know that you're really well-meaning, okay? I know what you're trying to do is absolutely fantastic, but it doesn't work like that in the long term. Take it from me, someone who's possibly lived longer than you guys, certainly spent a lot more time in the bush than most people I know. And this is my experience I'm trying to give you for what it's worth, okay? Timber. Oh, look, cutting down old forest, no way. Not if it's healthy. But if it amounts to going in and trimming out the bad stuff so the good stuff can exist, wonderful. Why is it wonderful? Because of the tracks, once again, that are kept open. Because of the country that's kept open. Because if you don't keep country open, you lose it next time there's a bushfire. It takes forever to recuperate. Have a look at some of those great big swathes of Victoria when they burn, you know, and see what results in the end. It takes ages just for the native animals to come back to country that they've lost. So we need to keep it open. We need to regulate it. Of course we do. Just like we need to regulate mining. We have to keep country open for mining too. Because if we don't, sooner or later it will be anyway. Guess what? Kakadu, one of the most pristine parts of the world, and right smack bang in the middle of it, there was a uranium mine. You know, money, mining, national parks. Sooner or later, somebody joins the dots, and that's what happens. Okay? And you might think now, oh, that'll never happen. We'll stop that forever and ever and ever. But you won't. Okay? The best you can hope for is to manage it properly. A lot of people I've met over the years, I was a miner myself, have worked in gold mines, are still working in gold mines in the country you're talking about too. And, you know, really, they're down there. They've got one of the hardest jobs on earth. Yes, you need to regulate all sorts of processing and things like that. Of course you do, and we already do to a large extent. I mean, compared to, you know, the sand mining I saw when I was a young bloke and what happens now, we've come an awful long way, and that is wonderful. By now, I hope you're kind of getting the idea that I'm a greenie at heart. Maybe a different sort of greenie. My sort of greenie believes that you get out there and hug the trees and camp underneath them and enjoy them and manage the bush properly, because the bush is not a resource that you can just fence off and say, there you go, it'll be right now. And, oh, by the way, we'll get some university-educated people to run around and sort the problems. No, it won't happen. They're probably the last people on earth who, you know, could actually shoot a dog or a pig or something like that. Look, there's so many issues. I made a crack here in the petition. I'm going to include a link down here too, just in case you guys want to sign it now. Joking. But I made a bit of a statement about, you know, environmental tourism or resorts and developers and things like that. And I know from the little bit of homework I've done on you guys who are behind this Great Forest National Park that you are as against that as I am. Another thing we may have in common, but can I tell you that that only lasts as long as you last, as long as you have the power to control it. What happens time and time again all over Australia is that someone comes along with a bit of money, sways the council, bang, things change. But, you know, it's all big money stuff and it's all about employment, and it, once again, misses out the average Australian. Because for me, this is what it's all about. And my dog's getting just about as upset as me at the moment. You can't allow that to happen. Oh, you say, it will never happen because it'll be written in. Yeah, sure. That's what they thought on Hinchinbrook Island. I'll put a link in here somewhere eventually about what's going on there at the moment. You might be aware of it if you're switched on to more than just your little part of Australia, your huge part of Australia that's absolutely glorious. Hinchinbrook Island is wonderful. I was in the fight against the developers up there a long time ago when Keith Williams wanted to turn the whole place into another resort. And what was the result of that? Oh, lovely, all declared parks, all protected, one lonely little walking track. You know what they're trying to do now? Our Labor state government, for heaven's sake, is backing a resort proposal, not one, 3 resorts, because they're big money tourism deals. At a time in our history, Australia's history, where mental health problems are absolutely massive, the last thing you want to do is tell a whole lot of people they can no longer do what they've been doing for a long, long time, okay? The bush is my church all throughout Australia. I feel at home. I feel a spiritual belonging that I can't explain in words. It's almost like a thrumming that goes through me, but I love it. And I know there's an awful lot of people feel just like me. You know, whatever activity takes them there, they feel like me. This is a vital part of being Australian, of being a citizen of the world. What we need here is not a blanket exclusion zone, which ultimately is what happens with national parks. I'm really sorry, but lack of resources, lack of understanding of people's real needs, possibly a huge overweighting of academic style conservation, which is not practical. I'm sorry, it's just not practical. So many times it's so well-meaning and we need it, it's going in the right direction, but leave it up to the people, the average Aussies on the ground, to sort the problems. Suggest what they should do. Provide the regulations. But leave it at that, you know. Don't just go, oh, national park, it'll all be great and you'll have plenty of walking tracks and bollarded areas and it's going to be wonderful. Sorry about that. Bit of an issue. I've got some possums living in the roof here, up on top of the stumps, and I've got a family of carpet snakes, it looks like, just about to come through. So that's why the dogs are carrying on. Anyway, I know you're well-meaning, and I don't think that this is unresolvable, but I do know that more national parks, at this stage, the way they're going is not what's required, you know. We need to use the skills and the loves and the abilities of people who love the outdoors to manage this land, okay? We really do. The answer is not to lock people out because of what they do. It's to find a way of using what they do that benefits the country. Okay, that's it from me. I look forward to meeting you sometime too, and I'm not a bad bloke, fair dinkum. I just have fairly strong opinions on what I've seen, and I really don't want to be locked out of my own country, really. Okay, see ya.